Now that you have a domain name and a web host and you're all set up on your web host with your new domain name, the next step is to install WordPress and begin the process of customizing your new site for Google. Now, there are all kinds of resources on the internet about how to do all of the things that I've described so far, including setting up WordPress, but I thought it would be nice for those of you who have never done it before, to have all of these training resources all in one package so that you don't have to go hunting for it. Of course, many of you who have done this before will want to skip this part because you already know how to set up WordPress, and it's quite simple after you've done it once. For those of you who haven't done it before, you simply go to wordpress.org, as is stated here at the top of the screen, wordpress.org, and download WordPress, whatever the current version is, to your PC. Okay, so I clicked that, and right now we're going to click download WordPress, and it's going to show up on my PC. After it is downloaded, I will double click on it and unzip those files to a folder on the PC somewhere. And then after I do that, it's quite a simple step to then copy all of those files using FileZilla, which we talked about earlier, up to the web host. Now, I have here on my PC, this is a directory on my PC, WordPress 3.32, so I have already downloaded WordPress, and here are all the files associated with WordPress, and we're going to take all of these files and copy them to our remote site, which is our web host. And to do that, in FileZilla, we click on Open Site Manager, create a new site, and in our case our new site is called newschest.com, so we will name it, and the host is the same thing, newschest.com. Sometimes your web host may have you give it a different name, and we tell it what our user and password is. We click on connect, and FileZilla connects to our web server. In most cases, your web server will put files in a folder called public HTML. And we'll go to our site that we created called NewsChest. Now, in the NewsChest folder, your web host has already placed a few files, and those are okay, we leave those there. But in addition to those, we select all of the WordPress files that we had downloaded from wordpress.org and just drag them over into this folder called NewsChest. And FileZilla begins to copy them for us, and you can see that's what's happening in this bottom pane here. Is one at a time it's copying these approximately 9 or 10 megabyte worth of files up to the web server. And as soon as it has finished that, we'll do a couple of other steps, and our WordPress installation will be complete, and we'll have the beginnings of a website. And all of this really just takes a few minutes after you know how to do it. The final thing that WordPress needs to complete your installation is a database. And most people use MySQL. It's a free database, and it's available on your web host. So I'm back on the Bluehost control panel, and I scroll down to the databases section and click on MySQL databases. And this is the panel that comes up to create a new database under my web host. So on my web host, it already has a prefix called equals R4, and I'm simply going to type NewsChest. So the full name of our database will be equals R4 underscore NewsChest, and I click on Create Database. And it's really as simple as that. The MySQL database is created. And then I have to create a user name, and this is like a user ID to access the database with. And I give it exactly the same name, News Chest, just for simplicity. I'm getting an error message that says it can't be that long, so we'll just call it News C for the time being, if we can remember that. And I'll go ahead and use this password generator so that it creates a very secure, impossible to remember, but secure password. And we will create the user with this button. So we've now created a database and a user ID, and the final thing is we need to associate the database and user ID together. So we select the user, which is this News C. We will select the database, which is News Chest, and then we'll click Add. And the next thing is it asks us what kind of privileges or rights should the user have to the database, and we'll give it all of the privileges. We'll click make changes, and that's all of the setup that we need for the database. Now we simply have to tell WordPress where to find this database, and we do that by editing a file. When we downloaded the WordPress files to our PC, these are the files that we downloaded, and among them is a file called wp-config-sample.php. This is the file that tells WordPress what the name of the database is that we created for it. And we're going to edit that file, and as you can see, it says put the database name here. And if you remember, our database was called Eagles R4 underscore news chest, and our username of the database was called, if I remember correctly, Eagles R4 news C. And then I'll paste in the password here, and that's all we need to do. We enter those three things. The database host for most web hosts can be localhost. If it's something else, then when you created the database, usually your web host would have told you what that should be. And we will save this as not wp-config sample, but wp-config.php. And then we will simply drag that wp-config file in FileZilla over to our news chest directory, and that's what we need to do to get set up as our last step for installing WordPress. So now that we have WordPress installed on our domain newschest.com, we can go directly to that domain and see how it looks. So the very first time that you enter your domain, WordPress is going to give you this panel asking for the site title, and we'll simply call it News Chest, and we'll leave the admin username. We'll add a password. I use a password generator to do that fills it in for me. It requests that you create an email address. So we'll just do something like info@newschest.com. And we click install WordPress. Now that we have all of the files and databases and everything set up, it says success, and we log in with admin and the password that we generated. I use LastPass, by the way, to store passwords. And we're now in the back end of WordPress, and we're ready to set up the design of our site. Now if we actually just go to newschest.com, we will see the default design and theme that WordPress starts with after you first installed it, and includes the name of your site, a header area, a menu area, the first article, Hello World, the default article, and a column to the right, a footer area, and so on. All of these things we will modify as we put our new site together in future lessons.